Right, so the government of Canada is now and has probably been doing it for a while, surveying social media for anti-immigrant and anti-Trudeau views, and this is something that's straight out of North Korea doesn't even have social media, but like a modern day Soviet Russia or something like that, or even Nazi Germany kind of thing. That's, obviously it's not on that level. I don't think the Trudeau government is comparable to a government on that level, but it's something that a government like the Soviets or the Nazis would love to have been able to do. Like it's like I said, they haven't gone nearly to the extent. They're not killing millions of people, but it opens the door and is a very, very slippery slope. Like I think something like this is the definition of a slippery slope. That if they human nature is not, power corrupts basically for human nature. Some people can handle it, but a lot of people, it's just too hard to resist. And the more power, the more harder it is to resist. So you got, maybe you're a mayor or something and you can handle that, but you're a high level MP, or even Justin Trudeau, the prime minister, and you can't hold back with this kind of stuff. So let's quickly read the article, and it says, according to internal emails obtained by True North from Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, the Trudeau government appointed a team of staffers to surveil the comments of Canadians for bigoted immigration criticism. A total of 12 communications and social media staffers were involved in a social care team which was tasked with surveilling tweets and Reddit posts by Canadian citizens. And then they post the email here. And this is a post-millennial article if you're wanting to go read it for yourself. Other stuff, among those surveilled were Conservative Party leader Andrew Scheer, Michelle Rempel, and PPC leader Maxime Bernier. One Reddit thread targeting Toronto hotels, irregular border crossers. The group scanned comments and noted the anti-Trudeau views of the Canadians involved. The comments are unfavorable to the Prime Minister and government and are also very unsympathetic to those claiming asylum. Again, every person coming across the border from the U.S. is not a refugee. It's impossible under the definition of a refugee, because if you're a refugee, you have to claim asylum in the first safe country you get to. The U.S. is a safe country, therefore you're not a refugee if you come across the border from the U.S. to Canada by default. No questions asked. I don't. It's the definition of a refugee and the definition of having to claim asylum. So the government and a lot of people on the left love to claim that these people are people who are claiming asylum. I know in the U.S. it's a comparable thing to people coming across the U.S. border. Technically, Mexico's not as bad as it's made out to be. The average place in Mexico is probably comparable to a Los Angeles or a New York or something like that for crime and stuff. So, but we're talking about Canada in this context. It goes on to say, the threat had become bigoted in nature. The vast majority of popular comments were extremely negative until Enkin. What do they mean by bigoted? Because most of the time what they mean by bigoted isn't bigoted in any way. It's just saying that, we need to lower immigration levels. This is getting out of control. Look at all the trouble Europe's having with all this kind of stuff. And again, immigrant isn't a race. Like, it's so the people who are doing this kind of stuff are so tone deaf that the overwhelming majority of Canadians disagree with them, but yet they still think they have the moral high ground. That's what really gets me. And again, let's finish this off by saying the committee's surveillance findings were forwarded to the Privy Council's office as well as the Deputy Minister of Immigration Ministry. Documents also included several pages of tweets by Canadians which were critical of the government's handling of immigration with labels like condemnation of the Trudeau government. The government's database includes all of the tweets which are tagged at Maxime Bernier and the Immigration Department's official Twitter handle. It is unclear how the government is using the data being collected about the activities of Canadians on social media. And I would literally bet every possession I have that it's for some way nefarious. There's no way they're doing it just to, get the public's opinion on this kind of stuff or something, because they already know the public's opinion. So the problem with this, like I said, is this is such a slippery slope because the government can, I mean, in Europe, I mean, not all of Europe, but the UK, I know, Sweden, I don't know any other countries off the top of my head, but I know there's more. You can be arrested for posting stuff that's deemed hate speech, and technically Canada has free speech, but the courts really aren't upholding it. So Canada, technically they do, but technically we don't, given the courts don't uphold most of the cases involving free speech. The U.S. does have free speech, but there's a big push against it, and the problem with this stuff, like I said, is it's such a slippery slope that technically the government monitoring social media isn't bad, really, but the problem is that it opens the door for such a slippery slope that it's almost impossible to comprehend. Therefore, it shouldn't be allowed. This stuff shouldn't be going on. That the problem is that a lot of people on the left, they'll support it because it's their team doing it, but then if it was the Trump government doing it, then they'd be all over it. So, and the Trump government probably is doing it to an extent, but not nearly on this level. They're not going in and looking at anti-Trump tweets and claiming that they're bigoted. Like, not that's a completely different context. That's just because it's anti-Trudeau that somehow means it's bigoted. It's absolutely insane. And this is when I think most Canadians would agree if you talk to them. The Trudeau government's going to get voted out, but with stuff like this going on, it wouldn't surprise me if they don't. I don't see any way they don't lose seats. That's not possible for them not to lose seats, but it wouldn't surprise me if they stay in because they're cheating in almost every way they possibly can. They're drastically increasing immigration, which immigrants from the third world overwhelmingly vote for the left, and they're not increasing immigration for people who are, I mean, long story short, going to be productive members of society. I believe the number is about 80-20, that about 20% are economic immigrants, that being that they are people who are going to come and work and pay taxes and contribute to the system. The other 80% is either quote-unquote refugees. They almost always aren't, but the government will claim they are, and the left will defend that. Or like the family reunification or whatever they call it, in that if you have a family member living here who's a citizen or permanent resident, they can, I don't know how long it takes, but they can bring family members from other countries in and get them permanent residency or citizenship. So, like I said, like even the PPC in Canada and even the Trump government is labeled far right by the left, even though they're not. The Trump government is to the left of the Bush governments and the other Bush governments in a lot of ways. And I mean, they're to the left of the Obama government in a lot of ways too. But the left has gone way to the left. So what they need to do to justify that and people to be kept quiet that they've gone so far to the left is that they have to constantly accuse the right of being far right. So then they can appear more moderate, when in reality the right hasn't gone to the right, and they've gone far to the left. But I don't want to talk too much about this topic, but just to sum it up, this is something that's very scary. And I mean, number one, it's anti-free speech. That, again, immigrant isn't a race. So even if you say that we should want zero immigrants, that's not a bigoted view in any way, shape, or form, because immigrant isn't a race. If you were saying that I don't want anybody from Africa or a specific country in Africa, I mean, even saying anyone from Africa, you would have to say, I don't want anybody from, Somalia, or nobody from Saudi Arabia. That would be racist because it's a specific race. But immigrant isn't a race. So saying that you don't want any immigrants is not racist. I mean, I think it's a little too far of a view. Even I think the PPC has it almost nailed on the head that we need to drastically increase economic immigrants and drastically decrease immigrants that want to come and just live off the system or just come because their family's here. And again, the majority of Canadians agree with that. So, I mean, you can call me a racist or far right or whatever you want to call me, but again, only 6% of Canadians want immigration levels increased, and the Liberals' plan is to increase immigration. So if you want immigration to be where it was at, a year or two ago or lower, you agree with the vast majority of Canadians. So it's the Trudeau government that holds the fringe views. They think that it's the right that holds or the PPC that holds the fringe, far right, quote unquote, views, but it's actually them who hold the fringe views, and that's something that in society is another big issue. I'm not going to get too into, but it's the left, and I mean the right has done it in the past, but the left is the one that does it in the overwhelming majority of the time today. Is that they'll take a position on whatever immigration. They are the ones that hold the fringe views that only a very small percent of the population holds, and they'll flip it around and claim that the other side is the one that holds the fringe views, and they are the ones that speak for the majority. And I think they actually believe what they're saying, because I don't think they could be that stupid. But like I said, that the far left is the ones that are the most outspoken, the ones that are speaking the loudest in society. It's not the moderates, it's not the Republicans, even the far right. They're a lot of people who, I mean, most people who want less immigration, a lot of them, I would say most of them, but a lot of them are scared to publicly hold that view, or to post on social media, or to tell their friends, because the far left is going to call you racist, and because it's the far left always speaking up and making it seem like they're a larger percent of the population than they actually are. I've heard estimates that they're about 8% of the population, which probably makes sense, given you look at United States Congress and all that. You have about 5 or 6 of the very outspoken far left congresswomen who speak all the time, who speak really loudly. That I think people think that they think that they are speaking for a large majority of the population, or not majority, but a large percentage of the population, and when in reality they're not. So I'll leave it there. Like I said, this is a very, very scary precedent, and for anyone concerned with free speech in Canada, you need to be worried about this. For anybody concerned about, even if you're a Liberal or NDP, you need to be scared about this, because giving someone if you're Liberal or NDP, just imagine what you think if the Trump government was doing this. So that's about the best way to put it. So I'll leave it there. If you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.